Hello, and we are now live to code some Ruby on Rails. And today we're going to be doing a project that's going to sort of help us out with future projects. And I think it's going to help out a lot of other people as well. And we're going to cover some things that we wouldn't usually cover in any other video, dealing with Git and GitHub and things like that. So let's get started. Now, the goal here is to create a base web application and push that up to GitHub. So whenever I want to start a new application, instead of doing Rails new, which is a great tool, what the outcome of this video will be is I could just clone a GitHub repository down to my system. It's going to have everything that that Rails new creates, as well as it's going to have all the gems set up and the tests written that I typically do on the new projects. And I'll just keep updating this one GitHub repository for all the things that I want to do on every single project. One of the things, well, a lot of the stuff has to do with the development environment and testing. So all the testing stuff will all be set up, as well as the Stripe stuff. I'm going to have that set up already, and we'll go through some different things. But for now, what we're going to do is first create, my cat's making a lot of noise here, but we're going to first create, let's see, get this working. We'll create a new directory, so we'll make directory, and we're going to call it RailsStart. That'll be the name of it all. And let's see here. What we'll do is we'll push this. Actually, we'll create a. We'll get all the code in here. We have nothing in here, so we'll cd into it. We have nothing in here right now, so we'll get all the code that we want to start. And the latest project that I did was the Alias Nerd website. So we'll just pull that in and we'll use that as our starting base. So we'll do a git clone. In git clone, let's see if I have, no I don't, that's a YouTube. Let's see if I can grab the repository here. So we'll just copy that over to here. And then I'm going to put a space and a dot because I want to say copy everything inside the root directory. So it's not going to create a brand new folder, at least it shouldn't. This will just create, clone everything and bring everything in from that directory. So I'll hit enter. And we shall see what happens. I'm going to hit ls, and okay, so it worked. We have all the app, the bin config, and all that kind of stuff in there. Now I do have this, the RailsStart has this Git branch called master, meaning it has taken all the information from the current Git repository or Git initialization on Alias Nerd, which is not exactly what I want. So I'm going to see if I can simply just delete that folder. Can I go into here? So we have RailsStart. There's a Git folder here. I'm wondering if I could just select that, delete it, and we'll now ls, and you can see that the name here on my line, my bash line here, instead of having the master there, which was for the branch, the Git branch, there's nothing, meaning there's no GitHub, or sorry, there's no Git repository for this directory right now. So we're going to want to fix that right away. So we're going to do git init, and it's going to initialize the empty repository. So, or sorry, yeah, the empty repository. Okay, so then it's going to do git should be back here, which it is, which we can't really tell information there yet. But what we can do in here is maybe do a git add. I should have done probably a status. Git status, let's see what it did. So it added all those files. So what we should do, actually I don't want all these files in there because we're going to be deleting a bunch. So since I'm just starting out here, I'll bring that down. I'll just do that all over again just because I want it nice and clean. I could probably, actually, is there a way in Git to unadd something? So we'll say git unadd, undo git add before commit. Git reset, you could use a git reset. Okay. So we will try that. Git reset like this, and then git status. Perfect. Okay. So what we want to do here is go through and remove a lot of the files that we're not going to want from RailsStart here that was initially in Alias Nerd. So I'm going to maybe do that from inside of here. So what we're going to do is, don't need any of this. So we can go in the app controllers, we don't need a lot of this stuff. So we don't need project search. I wonder about search though. Yeah, I should probably get rid of it. That's weird. We don't need any of this stuff. Subscriptions we do need. I'm going to keep search just to keep an eye on that. Votes and videos we don't need. Welcome we don't need. Okay, so I'm going to delete all of that. Perfect. Now in the models I can get rid of charge we need. Config nerd projects. Video and voter we don't need. So we're going to keep users and we're going to keep charge because that's the subscription thing. Views, divides we need to keep. Projects we don't need. Videos and welcome we don't need. And config nerd. So I'll delete all those. We'll go into layouts, just make sure it's just application. We'll go into shared and you can see a lot of this stuff. Navbar we'll keep, but we don't need that. I don't even think we need navbar. No, it wouldn't make sense because we'll just create our own navbar when we're ready for it. So, or I'll just keep it there and I'll erase it from the inside. I'll make it a blank file. Subscriptions, we're going to keep that. We'll go into mailers. We don't have anything there. Helpers, we do have the helpers for all of this stuff. We can get rid of all of them. Delete that. Assets, we didn't really have much, but we'll get rid of what is there. And JavaScript, we can get rid of that as well. Delete that. Okay. And images, nothing. So that was the controllers, helpers, models. Yeah, that's good. Views. Okay, so let's go into coverage will be updated. Config, we don't need to worry about that. DB migrations, we don't need this, so we'll delete this. I like friendly ID, I'm going to keep, device I'm going to keep, we don't need videos, charges we need to keep, so get rid of videos. Config nerd, acts as votable, I think we can keep that. And create voters, we can get rid of that. So anything to do with voters, I can't remember if I kept that up here in app. Views, oh sorry, don't think so. Oh, wait, controllers, nope. Oh, models, I think I might have done it in models. Models, no, okay. So that's good. We are back into here. The DB, just double check this before we move on. Migrate, we got devise, friendly, charge, that's for the card, and votable. Okay. Now we have the lib, nothing in there. Logs, we don't need anything in there. Public didn't change ever. Test, we have controllers, so we have cards, config nerd, project, videos, votes, controller, test. I'll leave that there for now, and the welcome controller. Okay, so we'll get rid of all of those. So all we have left with is search, subscribe, and votes for the controllers. Fixtures, we don't want charges. Oh, we want charges. We don't want config nerd, projects, videos, voters we don't need. Delete those. And then we're going to have helpers, the welcome helper test. I'll leave that for now. User registration flow, we'll leave that for now. Mailers, models, we're going to have configured, video, and voter. None of those models are needed. And test helper stays the same. We'll go back into RailsStart here, and vendor doesn't really have anything. And the rest of the stuff we'll check from inside. Okay, so now I'm going to go into Vim. And from in here, we'll just check some of the files to make sure everything's looking good. So app, we have controllers. We have, let's just start at the beginning here. So the application controller, let's see. So we have the devise. We don't need this configure because that was something completely different. So we'll get rid of that. The admin requirements. So we will have an admin on our new stuff, so that's good for viewing the page. So we added a name field to the user model for devise, which is handy here. So that's worth keeping. The current user admin, that's worth keeping. Current user subscribe, that's worth keeping. And yep, I like that. So we will save this and move on to search controller. So search controller, I'm just going to comment this out because it's not relevant to this, but it is good to have as an example what we could be doing here. So how we would get the search results. Okay, so I'll just save that and go back to subscriptions, and we have that's all working. Just making sure. Okay, so then this right here, setting the host. Now this is interesting. What I should do with the host here is have this in the configuration. Let's see about setting this up in the configuration here. So I'm going to do Rails set config variables. I'm going with Rails config gem nowadays for the fine grained control. Don't really. Alrighty, so I just want a simple variable I can access. Update Rails 4. In Rails 4, there's no way of doing this. Custom configuration. You can configure your own code through the Rails configuration object with custom configuration. It works like this. Okay, so that's what I want to do. So I'm going to do that with the host. So I'm going to go into the, it was in the Rails.configuration. That's fine. What's the file name? Config application to RB. Okay, that's where I'm going to do it. All right, so in there, I'm just going to check one other thing quickly. Bear with me here. Yeah, so everything should be in, this is going to actually work out good for other stuff. So we're going to split screen this, vertical, and I'm going to go in here and go into config, application.rb, and inside of here, do you have to do the X, is what I'm thinking. Under the config.x property. Okay, so we're going to set, actually I'm going to see up here because this is talking about config, if there is a config host domain. Rails config host. Hmm. All right, yeah, so that's, I was looking at that earlier, the default host, it wasn't really set. So we'll just set our own. If there's a way to do it, we'll figure that out later and we can always change this. So we'll just do config.x.default host, and that's going to equal www.defaulthost.com. Actually, I'll put it to one of mine. I'll put it to aliasnerd.com. And then we'll have to change that when, whoops. So let's do this. So update this value for your actual host domain. Okay, so we have that now. So I'm going to save this and close. Whoops. Save this and just close out of here. And then in here now I can get rid of all of this. And I'm pretty sure you just do rails.x.default host. And I'll just verify. At the very bottom. So I can do, oh, I have to do configuration. Rails configuration.x. Copy this. Oh, so I'm going to go back here. What the heck? And then just change this to say that. Oh my god. Okay, and then this will do this. Rails configuration.x default host. Okay, perfect. And now we will copy this, yank this down to here, and paste it. And then I think I have another one. Yank this down to here. Okay, and oh, I need another one here. So this is going to make it so it's very easy to configure this in one spot. So we have to make a few changes when we do this. So okay, let's get this. How many of these alias nerds things do we get? Okay, so I'm going to do it one more time here. Paste it there, and are we at the bottom? Yes, we are. Okay, so far that's looking good. So the protocol is working out. We have the default host set up. Everything else looks fine. Stripe ID, Stripe subscription ID. That's all should be set up in the user already, so we're not changing any of that. The redirect for new action should be working. So that's perfect. So we're going to save that and head on over to, okay, so these three controllers look like they're working. I'm going to close that up. Helpers had application helper. Do I have anything in here? Navlink. Now, Navlink sets the class active inside of this LI. Okay, now this is why I'm doing this. Now it's important to understand. I could create a link to that sets active on that using a Rails method that's already built in, a Rails helper, I'm pretty sure. But in this case, we want the active class to be on the list tag. So in order to do that, I check the current page and I set it to the list tag here, and inside of that, I do the link to. So this is actually pretty handy to keep. We'll keep that, and we can eventually add more to that in the future. But for now, that's the only helper we need. Model, we'll check the charge. So it validates some, what's going on here? Okay, so the charge belongs to, I don't need this in there. It belongs to a user and it validates that as a user ID, charge ID, all those things. So that's perfect. So we don't need anything really there. User has the device stuff. That's good. It uses friendly ID, which we're going to leave and set up. It validates the name and the uniqueness of that name, which is good. Has many charges, which is good. We're going to keep that. We have subscribe, we're keeping subscribed, and we have remove subscriptions, that's perfect. We have fetching a customer, which is perfect. And we have get subs count, which is, we can keep that. It's dealing with the Stripe subscription ID, which we're keeping as well. So we might as well just keep that method because it could come in handy. So in views, we have the device views we'll leave alone because I think they're all staying perfectly. The layout, we may have to change some of this. So the title, I'll change this to site title. The stripe key, we're going to need to have that there, so that's fine. The flash is pretty cool there. We have the full width yield, I'll keep that there. It may come in handy at some point. We have the page title, which I like to use. The container, which I like. The yield is good. So we will change this over to site name designed for some reason by that. Okay. So we don't actually your name. Okay. So that seems fine. That can be used for everybody. The search, this one, search results. So this is going to be not very useful. This is completely useless, so I'm going to delete that and just send that over there. We need it for the test to work because we have a search controller still. The nav bar. So let's see here. We have, this is just a site name for that. We have the search path, which seems to be set up good. We don't need this. We don't need this. If users signed in, we have edit subscription, destroy user, edit config, generic path. We don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need this. Okay. And the subscribe button, sign in, sign out. Those are all very handy, and we're going to use all of that stuff. Perfect. So I can save that and come down into subscriptions, subs info panel. So I'm going to do this into some company. Okay, good. And the payment I'll just leave there. You can change that. People can change that to the way they want it to be. It's in the subs info. This looks good. Whoops. I don't think I need to change anything there. So that was in views, right? So the form is just a standard form. Nothing custom about that. The edit, subscription info, nothing different. This is fine. Start subscription, it all looks good. So we want to keep all that. Next up is, we'll leave config for now. DB migrate this name emails. Yeah. So this is going to stay liblog test. Controller, we got searchers. Okay, that's good. Integration, gonna leave that. Well, we don't have any tests there. User in charge, that stays. Gem file. This is all the stuff we're using for the gem file, so all that can stay. Okay, so as of right now, I believe this should work. So what I'm going to do is quit that and quit this. And then we're going to do rake db create. Okay, this is the step that I need to do that I haven't done already. So we need to go back into Vim, and we need to configure this application to be the RailsStart application. So every time you create a new application in config, there's two spots that set the actual name of the application, and it's in application.rb. So you have to go up here and set the module. So we're going to replace this with Rails Starter. Rails Start, I think I called it. Rails Start. So we've done it there, and then there's another spot in the session store. So I'm going to save this. Whoops. So I'm going to save this and go over to initializers and session store, which also uses the name. It's just right here. Okay. Whoops. Once again, I did that third time today. So that's pretty much all that we're going to have to change. We didn't need to change this one in the set, but it just makes more sense to change it there. So quit out of there, and now we can do rake db create. And instead of looking for those exact same databases, it's going to say, oh, we don't have one because of the new name we just set up. Ah, it did not. So that must be inside of the database stuff, which I didn't think it accessed its own name there. So let's go into DB. No, where would that be? Config databases. So there's a third file we have to go into, which I didn't think we did. Here. Okay, so we're going to get out of all this and do this as RailsStart. And pretty much get rid of all of the other stuff here. Rails, whoops. Rails. What is going on here? So we're going to insert Rails Start delete all that. And database name is xxxxxxxxxx Rails Start. Delete all that. Okay, so I'm going to delete this because we're not using any of that. And this username we'll just change for now. Good. So we can exit out of there, and now this should actually work. Hopefully, well, you will see. And then we're going to migrate. So Rails, rake db migrate. And from that migration, then we can run our tests just to make sure everything works. So all that migration worked perfectly. Now we can rake test to see how this looks. Now, bundle install might be handy, but this might already be done for us. The project's okay. So the votes, we have some votes test, which I don't need to keep that votes test, votes controller test. But we'll wait and see if there's anything else here. So there's 4 errors. The last one was the user flow welcome controller. Okay, so that's in the user control flow. So I'm just going to hit bundle install quick. Now you would have to do that because I know all these things are on my system. It's not a real big issue because it just worked. But if you're going to be cloning this onto your own system, you'd have to run bundle install before you ran those tests. But now we can go in and just double check to make sure everything's good here. So it's under tests, controllers, and this votes controller test. I kept it in here. Okay, so I'm not going to do this anymore because this was using tests in a different way than before. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to deleting that file. But the user registration flow, this is where things get a little bit different. So let me see here, root path. So we do have to change the root path on this. So that's one thing in config that I need to set up differently. Config routes, and this is going to be Stripe engine will leave, the users will leave. We don't need the projects or the videos. This we will leave, and subscription will leave. We don't need, actually the cards is fine. Config nerd, we don't need subscriptions, that's fine. Now I'm pretty sure I can here. Here, app name. So we need to do that here. Enter your app name. Okay, so that'll have to be updated. Then we have search. Search will work. Liked, votes, voted up. In order to do liked, I'm going to have to change that. So I don't believe I kept the controller for likes. I did not. So get rid of that, and then root I'm going to put this back into the, I'm going to change it over, because we will have users here, I'm going to change it over to, what would be the controller on that? Let's go here and do rake routes. We're going to switch it over to one of the user ones because we're going to have that because we have device set up and we have the user models and the views already. So we might as well just have them start off on that. So what we need to do is just double check. So we have devise. Do we want to do devise session new for sign in? Might as well. So I'll just copy this whole thing here. Copy. And here I'll just do paste. There we go. So I should be able to rerun rake test, and those errors should be gone now, hopefully. Except for the error of removing. So we're going to go into, we need to remove that one file, that controller file. So we need to go into RailsStart, and then we will remove app, controller, controllers, and then it was votes controller. Do I not have one in there? Okay, I thought I had one in there. Oh, I don't know why I did that. Okay, so what do we have here now? Undefined projects. Votes controller test. Votes controller test. Oh, it's because votes controller test is what I want to get rid of. And then search controller test I need to check out. So let's just handle this first one, votes controller test. So we are going to remove from tests, controllers, votes controller test. There we go. And then in here we can do rake test just to double check those have been removed. And then there's still this last one. Well, there's an error up there. Let's just see what these two are. Okay, so undefined method projects. Oh, okay. And then there's this other one, action not found, abstract controller action not found, devise mapping for path slash. You forgot to wrap your route inside the scope block, for example. All right, so it's not liking that routes. Okay, so let's go back into here then. So we're going to check out search controller test first. And it's saying here's a setup. We don't have projects. We don't have videos. And it's just, that's pretty much all it's saying. Okay, so that's fine. Boom. So that'll run. The other thing was the integration test. It didn't like this. It said visit route path, and the route path it's not really liking. So let's go over to config and routes. It's not liking this devise slash sessions. That's what it's not liking. Okay, so let's just double check because I've never sent something directly to there. So Rails devise routes controller. Let's just throw all the words in there and see what happens. Well, pretty much what we want to do is go root to devise login. Bing. Workaround. You'll find that there's a clue. Yes, there's a clue. So I tried. Yeah, device scope user do. Oh, that's cool. Authenticated user and unauthenticated. I never knew about that. Anyways, let's try this solution there, and let's just wrap in the block, which is sort of what the thing was telling us to do in the first place. Okay, so we'll just end this off, and we will boom boom. I'm going to do this just so that people know that we don't need it in there, just in case they're not familiar. Root to, we'll say welcome index. Let's do that, just so give people a hint that you don't need to do it inside this scope. All right, so now that that's set up, let's go back and do rake test and see if we've solved all the problems. Hopefully. We don't have too many tests. Oh, there is a test still. It's an infinite redirect loop. Interesting. So we are entered into this infinite loop because that we are trying to go to Now essentially I don't yes, I see what's going on here. This integration user registration flow test. I see what's happening there, and I understand why it's doing that. Okay, so it's either I delete the test or I do this, or I just change the test. So in order for this to work nicely, let's just change the test. So the problem is I'm visiting root path here. So I should visit new session, new user session path. Pretty sure I can click sign up from there. Now this could still not work, but let's just try it. Rake test. I'll just clear this and then do rake test. This is a weird one because of this infinite loop. I don't really need this test, but it's handy to have it there just to see how I can continue on those integration tests and keep on going. Because this will get changed most likely, but in some cases it may not. You don't know. So it redirects. I wonder why. So something is making it redirect. I'm not entirely sure what. So why don't we do this, Rails S. This is always handy to do. We'll start up a server and we'll just test out this application. Because it's happening right on the root path, so it's just a matter of hitting the root path and seeing what it does. Now I didn't have Firefox started, so we'll have to wait on that a second. It should be fine. Okay, so we will hit this local host and see what the error is. Because what's happening is on this test, it's hitting that page, and then we're telling it to click a button on that page, and then fill out a form. So somewhere along those lines, along those steps, it's redirecting over and over and over and over again. Now we're not getting the error in the test here because I've set it up to not spit out all that junk, but we will, okay, so we have the login page, so this works. So site name, this is the default site that you'd see. So we get to there and then we can click sign up and let's see if we can find a loop here. Okay, so far so good. Oh, we need to get into the test here, so I'll open up Vim to see what the test is doing, and we'll just recreate the test inside the browser just to see what's happening here. So in the test, we have an integration test and the user flow. So we just say some stuff, we just create some user stuff here, so let's do that. So Fred, and then Fred at fred.com, and his password will be password and password. And then we'll just sign up with that, and this is where it's redirecting. So I'm just going to double check to make sure if it is redirecting, then we can go and we sort of know what works, what doesn't. Okay, so it isn't redirecting properly. So what we should do from here is then go in and say, well, what does it do inside of here? So we go, so in the application controller, do we set anything here to redirect? No, so let's just check what it tried to do. That's required no authentication. Okay, so it's halting at that. So let's just go back until it says. Okay, so here, it committed it, which is fine. So somewhere along the lines, I'm telling it to redirect. So it redirected to there, so that's done. So then it gets this. Trying to figure out where it did that. Is it still going to do this redirect thing? It's because we're logged in that it keeps redirecting. Aha. That's what this is talking about right here. This was sort of hinting at the solution, but I didn't really look. So where did I set that up? Down here. Now see how it said, okay, we tried this and it sort of worked, but it's not working because of this reason here. So this is probably going to say if it is authenticated, then okay, so this is what we want. So authenticated and unauthenticated. This is getting very complicated for not really ever going to have to use, never actually using this. So I might just change this over to, oh man, it's hard to decide on what to do. Because if I change it over to just a blank root, then I can't use the test. Yeah, I'm going to do that. This is what's going to happen. Sorry, fellas and girls. This is definitely going to go like this. Okay. So everything's fine there. I need to go into the routes. Oh, first I'll do the test. So the test, I'm not even going to run this test. So I'm just going to actually, what we'll do is I wonder what's going on there. Do that. Insert. Then we'll insert this. I think I screwed that up. Okay, block this and then insert that like this. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to save this because we're not going to do it. Head on over to the configuration into the roots because it's way too much work to get that to work and people are probably not even going to use it. So I'm just going to delete the root route, which will probably cause an error. What this error is probably going to cause is I probably use root route throughout the tests. So let's just go out here and check it out. So we'll quit here and just run a rake test. It's actually a lot harder to get things not to do anything than it is to get things to do things. So like trying to get this starter app just to exist is actually harder. So there's a bunch of stuff here, and it's almost always going to talk about this root URL. So because of that, let's go back into Vim. And do we have any root URLs? Not really. So what I can do in here is just do a temporary this is going to be a little bit weird, but this is something you could do. You could just do temp action and then nothing. Okay, and then this will go over to the config routes, and this will be a temp action. Okay, so now that's done. So temp action needs to render something. Can I do? Let's see if I can do this. This is a fun little question. Can I do? Oh, come on, select Rails render only template. Sorry, why did I write template? Render layout only. So let's see here. Try this. This will render the response to a file called sample, which could be a static HTML file. Let me see here. Render text nil layout true. That seems about right. So we're just doing this just to get something up and running for things to work. So let's just run that. And now that that's working, let's go over here. Actually, we could probably just run this in the browser to check quick. I'm going to click that. Site title, so it seems to be working. It's not going to render anything down here, but it will render the layout, which is cool. So we're good, and then we can log out. And we're good. Sign up. cool. Sign in. We're just testing the site here. Fred. Oh, we don't have anybody signed in. Or did we? Yeah, we did. So I'm just going to log in with that. Test the subscribe button. Brings us over here. Beautiful. And we can just test this. Now this is the API key. Nope, API key provided. Yeah. So it's something that's going to have to be done, but we're not doing that here because this is just the starter application. So that's good. Perfect. Everything seems to be working here. So I'm going to go back here and close out here, run rake test, and I think we are done. I think we are good to go. So we'll push this up to GitHub and create this as a project that can be cloned to start any application with a lot of the stuff. And we can always add to this to make it work out better. So we're at all tests passing, 93% coverage, so that's a little odd. Let's go into file, coverage. We don't want alias nerd, we want, this is called RailsStart, and we don't need this thing there, but we do, okay, all files. So it's not liking the user and the application controller. So where stripes null.count. Okay, yeah, because I got rid of the test to do that, so that's acceptable. I totally understand that. And then, this I sort of understand. This not really. I thought that would have tests for it, but maybe not. So that's something that's going to have to be looked at for this particular starter app, but not today. Don't really need to do that today. The next thing that I need to do is a couple things. On Alias Nerd, we'll create a new project called RailsStart, and just say this is a starter boilerplate application on GitHub for creating new Rails apps with devise users and Stripe subscriptions and more. GitHub link, we don't have that yet, so let's go over here and create a brand new repo. So the repo name is RailsStart, and let's just copy this, what we just wrote, over to here. It's a public repository. We don't need to initialize with a README, I don't believe. We don't need any of that. And we will, this has a README already, correct? Yes, it does. Okay, so we don't need that. So we can just create this RailsStart. Okay, so we can remote add this and then commit all our stuff. Okay, so we don't need any of that. We will remote add this into RailsStart, and then we can git status, git add all of that, git, actually I'm just going to check something here. In config, There is no application.yaml. Okay, perfect. I'm just checking. So we're going to do git commit message. This is the first commit. And like this. Boom. And we will git push origin master. Alrighty, so all of that is done. So now if we go over to a repo here and refresh, we have a little repository and first commit, beautiful, and that looks good. Let's go into config and application RB and just verify it does say RailsStart, so it's good there. And we have a repo location of this. So back in Alias Nerd, I'll just paste that into there. I don't think I need the web link for this. What I will do is put aliasnerd.com down for now, and then I'll just, that's sort of weird. Let's just save project, see if I don't need one. I do. So for now I'll do that. I'm going to change the way maybe that works, where this could either be blank, because it's not really, or maybe I'll generate an actual web page just for this starter project. That would be cool. But for now, we'll just do aliasnerd.com. So here is, we don't have actual pages for the projects yet. So maybe it would be cool to have this to just redirect over to the show page of this project. That might be cool, but who knows? Who knows? We'll have to think about that one. So that's just an infinite loop. This is the repo that will redirect over to there, which works out perfectly. And we have another project on our Alias Nerd. So that's pretty much all we're going to do today. So to recap, I'm going to put in the README doc of this, I'm going to put how to actually use this application. But pretty much what you're going to do is just git clone and then this URL. And then once you have the files, then you'll just change two things in the config, or it'll end up being three. You'll change the application.rb, this RailsStart. You change that to whatever your application name is. You're going to change in initializers and session store. You'll change this, which is the name of your app as well. And then in database.yaml, you'll just change the database names that you want to create. So in this case, you just change it over to whatever application name you're using. And that's it. That's all you have to do. There's going to be a couple other things, like you have to create the database and migrate over, right? You're going to have to do that. But you're also going to need to initialize some things like the friendly, I don't know if you have to initialize that. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Like the initializers, the friendly, is it in here, friendly ID? This doesn't really reference anything specific to this application. No, it's pretty empty. So I don't think you'll have to do anything there. That's done for you. Yeah, so I think you'll be fine. So yeah, I'll put all this in the README file at the very beginning down here on how you have to set all that. But that's it. You don't have to rewrite all your tests for your subscriptions. You don't have to rewrite all your tests for your users. You don't have to do the device stuff. You don't have to do the friendly ID stuff. All the gems are set up for the testing and all that kind of stuff. So it's really going to save at least a good 10-20 minutes at the beginning of any project to setting up all that kind of junk. So that's why I'm doing this, and we're going to use it on a lot of the future projects. And we'll also be improving this to be much better in the future, because this is based on only one project I've done so far. So once I get like 4 or 5 under the belt with this series, I'll be able to tweak the RailsStart application to really work best with how I work with these future projects on what I'm going to be using, the tests I'm going to be having, and all that kind of stuff. We'll really iron this out. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for working with me on this longer episode. I thought it was going to be a little bit shorter than this, but it worked out pretty good. We got this thing done on GitHub and Alias Nerd. So talk to you later, and have a great time coding.